Olson. We can entertain motions on the two bills that were presented, but for which we did not have a quorum at the time, so we couldn't entertain a motion at the time. So the first one is item number 1, AB 168 Mainshine. I hear a motion from Mr. Ridley Thomas and a second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on AB 168. Item number 1, the motion is due pass to appropriations.
Bonta?
Aye.
Bonta, aye. Mainshine? Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Burke? Burke, aye. Chavez? Aye. Chavez, aye. Chu? Gomez? Gonzalez? Hernandez? Lackey? Aye. Lackey, aye. Nazarian? Patterson? Patterson, aye. Ridley Thomas? Ridley Thomas, aye. Rodriguez? Rodriguez, aye. Santiago? Santiago, aye. Steinnorth? Steinnorth, aye. Thurmond? Waldron? Waldron, aye. Wood? Wood, aye.
That bill is out on a 12-0 vote. Next, we can entertain a motion on item number 3, AB 508. Assemblymember Garcia, we have a motion and a second. The motion is due pass to appropriations. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Bonta?
Aye.
Bonta, aye. Mainshine? Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Burke? Burke, aye. Chavez? Aye. Chavez, aye. Chu? Gomez? Gonzalez? Hernandez? Lackey? Aye. Lackey, aye. Nazarian? Aye. Nazarian, aye. Patterson? Patterson, aye. Ridley Thomas? Aye. Ridley Thomas, aye. Rodriguez? Aye. Rodriguez, aye. Santiago? Aye. Santiago, aye. Steinnorth? Steinnorth, aye. Thurmond? Waldron? Aye. Waldron, aye. Wood? Aye. Wood, aye.
That bill is out on a 13-0 vote. We will next go to item number 7, AB 1238. Mr. Linder. The floor is yours, Mr. Linder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. First, I want to thank the committee staff and all interested parties for crafting a solution to our state's outdated vital record request system and want to agree to accept the amendments that are listed in the analysis. Our state, California, is lagging far behind other states when it comes to the issuing of copies of vital records. While over 30 states and 150 local jurisdictions have moved towards a completely electronic request system, California remains stuck in the Stone Age, requiring its consumers to provide a notarized statement in conjunction with an online request. This is not only a huge hassle for consumers who have to locate a notary and pay for its services, but it's an administrative nightmare for county staff who have manually attached related documents, one by one for each individual request. I was once a notary, and I know this process well and how tedious it can be for both the issuing agency and the consumer. To request a record in the 33 states that authorize digital authentication, a person can complete a request at home on their computer with a few clicks of the mouse. There's no reason that California can't be the same, which is why I introduced AB 1238. It gives local agencies the authority to confirm identity online by using a dynamic knowledge-based authentication system known as KBA. I wish I could say that this is innovative, that California is coming out in front of the rest of the nation on the issue, but to say that would be a lie. KBA became widely adopted as an additional security measure after 9/11 when it was discovered that the hijackers obtained fraudulent driver's licenses to carry out their attacks. Under current California law, it's possible that a fraudulent ID could be presented to a notary. This is why AB 1238 is important. In the aftermath of 9/11, vital record issuing agencies throughout the country have adopted KBA to increase the security of their transactions and reduce the chances of identity theft. Several of these agencies have sent letters to my office reporting the success they've had using the KBA. New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and the District of Columbia are just a small handful of public agencies that have not experienced a single incident of fraud or ID theft while using the system. KBA is the same technology accepted by the IRS for electronic signatures, banking institutions, and even CalPERS for access to personal account information, and several other agencies. Even law enforcement uses KBA when you lose your license and need to confirm your identity.
Move the bill do pass as amended.
Thank you. AB 1238 will bring California into the 21st century alongside several other jurisdictions that already utilize digital authentication for vital records. With me to testify in support and answer any technical questions are Faith Conley, representing California State Association of Counties, Jolena Voorhis, representing Urban Counties Caucus, and Greg Circo, Vice President of VitalCheck.
So we just a clarification, we have a motion and a second. I think we have a motion and a second twice. And we have 3 witnesses, so you're limited to 2 minutes each. You need not use your entire 2 minutes. Witnesses, please proceed.
Faith Conley with the California State Association of Counties. I'll make this exceptionally brief. We're a co-sponsor of the bill. This would help save thousands of county staff hours. I'll just give you a couple really quick examples. Santa Clara spends about 3,000 county staff hours a year processing the notarized documents that go with vital records. Also helps out military personnel and the homeless and those others living in poverty with the cost and time issues that are related to getting a notarized affidavit to get their vital records. So for these reasons, CSAC urges your support.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members, Jolene Voris here on behalf of the Urban Counties of California. We're also a co-sponsor on the bill. We want to just emphasize that this bill is permissive. It's up to each county to decide whether they want to go this route or they can keep the notarized system. Just provides another tool in the toolbox for counties to have more options, and also provides, we believe, it would provide better service to our constituents who often have to wait several days, if not weeks, in some counties, especially large urban counties who have a large backlog. So we would urge your support for the bill and appreciate the author presenting this bill for us. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Greg Circo. I'm Vice President of LexisNexis VitalCheck Network. I've spent the last 23 years working with vital record agencies all over the country, helping them to try to improve the efficiencies with which they can process requests and the security surrounding those requests. So really, just to second what Assemblyman Lindner said, the status today in the use of knowledge-based authentication is this. 36 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and nearly 200 local vital statistics agencies have adopted this as the methodology for authenticating the identity of individuals ordering records online. So we believe it has truly become the state-of-the-art method for ordering these records. And I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has about it.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support? Is this support, right?
Good afternoon. Phyllis Marshall with Manat Phelps and Phillips on behalf of Los Angeles County in support.
Mr. Chair, Chris McKaylee on behalf of CompTIA, the Computing Technology Industry Association.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the San Bernardino Board of Supervisors.
Dana Nickel with Pete Conatine Associates and Associates on behalf of the California Association of County Veteran Service Officers in support. Thank you.
Carol D'Elia, Little Hoover Commission in support.
Witnesses in opposition?
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Becca Kramer, ACLU of California, in opposition. We recognize the intent of this legislation is good. It's to help people access their vital records. However, there's some very deep flaws in this. While no identity theft has been linked directly with dynamic knowledge-based authentication, it's because it's almost impossible to determine the source of identity theft. More than 2/3 of identity theft victims do not know how the identity thief obtained their personal information, but we do know that the information contained in vital records allows people to perpetuate further identity theft by obtaining state-issued IDs and opening new accounts. Any method for establishing the identity of the requester electronically, such as dynamic knowledge-based authentication, is subject to fraud. Electronic identity authentication systems can be gamed, particularly by individuals with a close personal relationship to the requester. Information such as former addresses and mother's maiden name can also be obtained through data brokers online and other digitized public records. There was even a Facebook app a few years ago that tested your knowledge of your friends by asking what of this type of information of your friends you knew, showing just how easy it is to obtain this information and for someone to fraudulently answer these questions correctly and obtain someone else's vital record that can be used to perpetuate identity theft. Simply put, knowledge-based authentication lets in identity thieves. Unauthorized access to these vital records can be used to perpetuate identity theft and further fraudulent activity because they contain a wealth of personal information, and therefore people should have to prove that they are who they say they are and they're not actually an identity theft who got information from data brokers or friends before getting access. The current requirement for notarization sets a higher bar for authentication than merely requiring an electronic acknowledgement. Additionally, there are other ways to meet the underlying concerns without risking identity theft in this way. First of all, I'm not convinced that there's something inherently difficult in scanning a notarized statement and attaching it to a digital application, which is allowed under California law currently. In the analysis, it discusses that there's staff hours spent matching these digital applications with the notarized statements. A simple technological fix so that you cannot submit a digital statement or digital request without your notarized statement attached would simply eliminate those hours of matching applications without subjecting California to further risk of identity theft, which, as we all know, is a really on the rise, and it causes a lot of time and concern for victims. I will yield all my other time to my colleague here who knows even more about identity theft, but I do strongly encourage you not to move this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Samantha Corwin on behalf of Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, also in opposition to this bill. In previous years and for similar pieces of legislation, we have also opposed similar measures. We do appreciate the author's attempts to amend, but as I think Becca clearly articulated, we continue to oppose the measure based on the knowledge-based authentication. And I think it's worth talking about what is that actually. There are different types of authentication. For example, many banks have moved to multi-factor authentication, which may involve some security questions, mother's maiden name, social security number, where did you go to high school, all information, by the way, as also previously stated, easily attained by strangers, coworkers, former boyfriends. But then also there's a multi-factor of authentication where you might get a text message or some other means that has already been demonstrated to be you is added as a secondary feature to protect people's identities. Knowledge-based authentication does not include that. And in fact, the Assembly member had mentioned many other states and many federal agencies, including the IRS, use knowledge-based authentication. And I would say to you something that my mother has often said to me as a child: if everyone else is jumping off a bridge, would you as well? The IRS using KBA was actually, many of you may know, recently breached. Of those breaches, they used information that they were able to obtain from other data breach leaks, and they had a 50% success rate using KBA with the IRS. As a result of similar breaches, as of last October, President Obama actually issued an executive order stating that federal agencies needed to move away from simply KBA and instead use multi-factors of authentication. For these reasons, and to protect the security of Californians, we encourage the author to continue exploring potential amendments or other vehicles, but at this time we cannot support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition? See none. Questions or comments from committee members? See none. Mr. Linder, would you like to close?
Certainly. As a former notary, I want to quickly address some of the concerns from the opposition. And typically what would happen is we have our journal. It's an analog journal, just like a book. And when someone comes to us to get a document notified, there's no actual knowledge that you can be 100% certain that the person that's identifying themselves is indeed the person that they claim to be. They could give you a fraudulent form of identification, which has happened, or the notaries could be knowingly doing something fraudulent. There's all kinds of scenarios where the potential for fraud is there. Now, in regards to the type of information, this is a dynamic knowledge information. This is not typically the request where it's asking for your mother's maiden name or your first car or your sibling's middle name. This is information that's going to be a lot more personal. It's going to be very random. It's going to be different every time that it asks, and there's multiple factors involved. And if there are any questions regarding that, we have experts here that can address those situations, those concerns. The amendments also align with the U.S. federal guidelines for security and privacy. And these guidelines are very, very strict guidelines, and according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology. These are used in agencies that are some of the most secure agencies in the country and in the world. So I hope that this addresses some of the concerns you may have, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Linder. We have a motion and a second. The motion is due pass to appropriations, and amendments will be taken in appropriations.
Correct.
And if this bill does get out today, I'd just like to encourage the author to try to work to address some of the concerns that you've heard today.
You have my word.
As you go through the process. Thank you, Mr. Linder. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Bonta?
Aye.
Bonta, aye. Mainshine? Aye. Mainshine, aye. Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Burke? Burke, aye. Chavez? 2. Gomez? Gonzalez? Hernandez? Lackey? Lackey, aye. Nazarian? Nazarian, aye. Patterson? Patterson, aye. Ridley Thomas? Ridley Thomas, aye. Rodriguez? Rodriguez, aye. Santiago? Santiago, aye. Steinnorth? Steinnorth, aye. Thurman? Thurman, aye. Waldron? Waldron, aye. Wood?
Mr. Linder, your bill is out on a 13-0 vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear item number 8, AB 1546. Ms. Olson.
And members, same topic as it relates to vital records. California state law requires that Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Thank you.
California requires that vital records such as birth and death certificates and marriage licenses be printed on chemically sensitive paper that features watermarks, fluorescent fibers, and other security features. In September 2015, many of you may recall this happening if you got calls like I did from your counties. The only company in the United States to produce paper with these security features closed suddenly, leaving county offices up and down the state scrambling for vital records paper. Some counties, including my own, had to start rationing the number of documents that people could go in and obtain. Fortunately, another printing company has since bought the printing supplies and equipment and has begun supplying our county offices with the much-needed paper. However, to allow our state's vital records paper to rely solely on the operation of just one company puts our community members at risk of once again losing access to their vital records when they need it most. And members, we don't really understand how important these records are until we need them to enroll our kids in sports, to enroll them in school, to travel internationally, to file for death benefits. AB 1546 will call upon the state registrar to study the feasibility of other, more flexible vital record security measures. I appreciate the input of the committee, and we will be reviewing how to even make more amendments to this legislation moving forward to provide greater access to this paper for our counties. With me is Deputy San Diego County Recorder Val Wood and Faith Conley from the California Association of Counties to share their expertise and their experiences with the crisis that occurred last September.
Hello, I'm the Chief Deputy Recorder County Clerk for San Diego County and also the co-chair for the County Recorders Association of California Recorders. I'm here to talk about this bill and how, in the experience that we had in San Diego County and the other county recorders across the state. As a similar member pointed out, it was a very stressful situation and one that no county recorder or county health department wants to be in. At the time when this happened, we were at the beginning of the fiscal year ready to make our annual orders and found that our supplier was going out of business and was no longer able to supply us. Many counties were unable to even produce some of the certificates and had to rely on the state registrar to help them. It's a very bad situation when we're not able to quickly provide those certificates to our citizens. They are often in times need them within days, and it could take weeks when the state registrar was not prepared to get the number from some large counties that they were having to help produce. We want this bill to pass, and we're looking for your assistance so that we do not ever find ourselves in this situation in the future, that we can find security measures that we're totally today unaware of, and that we can have some of those things identified so that in the future, if a security feature that's required is no longer available by multiple vendors, then we do have options. We also, as pointed out in the committee analysis, it is also an option that we are looking at, that possibly to have the state registrar authorize suspending a feature if we do find ourselves in the situation as we did in the summer of 2015. And we are looking for your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Faith Conley with the California State Association of Counties, again, in support of this bill as a co-sponsor. We acknowledge that there are temporary fixes in place. We would obviously like to see permanent fixes in place. We believe this bill is a step towards making that happen. Not only do our recorders provide these vital records, they're also provided by our county health departments. So we have two huge agencies in our counties that dealt with the shortage and had really large issues making sure that people got their vital records so that they could sign up for vital services. So we appreciate the author putting forth the bill. We would urge your support today. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members, Jolene DeVoris here on behalf of the urban counties of California in support.
Witnesses in opposition? Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Ms. Olson, would you like to close?
Respectfully ask for your vote.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. The motion is due pass to appropriations. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Bonta?
Aye.
Bonta, aye. Mainshine? Aye. Mainshine, aye. Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Burke? Burke, aye. Chavez? 2. Gomez? Gonzalez? Hernandez? Lackey? Aye. Lackey, aye. Nazarian? Aye. Nazarian, aye. Patterson? Patterson, aye. Ridley Thomas? Aye. Ridley Thomas, aye. Rodriguez? Rodriguez, aye. Santiago? Aye. Santiago, aye. Steinnorth? Aye. Steinnorth, aye. Thurmond? Aye. Thurmond, aye. Waldron? Waldron, aye. Wood? Wood, aye.
The bill passes with a vote of 14-0. Thank you, Ms. Olson. Next, we will hear item number 4, AB 796. Mr. Nazarian.